Thank you, Wendy,
No
and thank you, Jeanette, for a profound meditation. Quite easily stay in that mode for quite some time. Well, welcome everyone here. A couple have just arrived, and also to you on Zoom. It's a cold old day, but that hasn't stopped us. And I sometimes think, why I bother to do all this sort of stuff? But then again, I think, well, this is what I enjoy doing. Expanding my consciousness. And I got up this morning, it was freezing, I went out and went to walk around the block. And I looked at our sanctuary and I thought, yes, it's worthwhile persevering. And to you who managed to brave the elements, welcome along. Today's talk is on the Beatitudes. Most people know what they are, do they? The Beatitudes. Well, I don't want to sound too biblical because I'm not that sort of speaker, but sometimes I think it's needed. In the world today, we mentioned in meditation about how the planet's going through transformation, and in some countries it's not easy at the moment. And I just think to myself, oh my goodness, if we become extinct, maybe the planet will be at peace. They'll all get on together, the animals. They'll have a wonderful time. But they too will be transformed. What a unique opportunity we have to be who we are. And also an even better opportunity, knowing consciously that we are individual expressions of that one presence and one power. These are some of the things that are drilled into me, which I can't stop saying, but they're very, very handy. They put things in perspective. So as we move on in expanded consciousness, when we're all together, we can't all go running around mayhem. There has to be a code of ethics. Otherwise, the planet, well, we can see what's happening if there's not. People don't stick to a basic code of ethics. Now, the Beatitudes are a sort of code of ethics, but they're not like the old 10 Commandments. Now, the 10 Commandments were given by Moses when his group were in Egypt, and they were all under bondage to Pharaoh. And that is symbolic because we are under bondage to some of the junk that's in us. So Moses led the people out of that bondage into a place, and there they settled for a while. Things got a little bit out of control where they were in Canaan. People became more materialistic. They got used to the good life. And Moses thought it's time now to have some sort of rule and regulation. So he went up to the mountain and came down with the 10 Commandments. He did this twice. The first lot didn't seem to work. So the second time he went up, he came down and he saw the people worshipping an old golden calf. And he was quite put out by this. So after a little bit of fire and brimstone, people settled down a little bit, but of course they went back to their normal routine of just doing what they want to do, when they want to do it, and not worry about the consequences. Now those 10 Commandments were very, very strict really. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that, and on it went, the 10. Really impossible for some people at their stage of development to actually perform. Now, Jesus, about the time of Jesus, this is what was going on. Some say he travelled to India, Tibet, even Japan. Well, it wouldn't matter whether he did or didn't, because he had the law in him, and he knew it's universal spiritual law. When Jesus was teaching, 500 years before, in India, there was Gautama Buddha, there was Confucius, and there were other people in their culture that were learning about the spiritual truths. And by the time Jesus was around, there was a consciousness shift, and he helped to bring it around. He knew the Jewish law, and he explained that he hadn't come to get rid of it, he had come to fulfill it. because in that time the law was really just sort of usurped by the rabbis and priests. Anyone that wanted a prayer would go to the temple and the priest would do it for an offering. So Jesus then went to the masses and showed them, told them, from a boat, from a mountain, in the towns, outside the big cities. He told them about the spiritual laws and how they would be in control of their own lives, and these are the laws that would make life better for them. He didn't invent the law, but it was there to be shown to people. The kingdom of heaven is within. But even that would have taken a bit of time to settle in. And we just know that the code that Jesus gave them, the Beatitudes, these particular codes were just before the Sermon on the Mount. And that's going to be another story in the future. But there are 8 of these codes. And the first one is, blessed are the poor in spirit. And here, Jesus did not mean of limited understanding, but to empty ourselves of all preconceived opinions of the past and our wish to exercise our personal self-will, let go and let God. Now on the screen, I've been looking at this for the last few weeks. I didn't actually get the key to this talk until last night. There was something missing, and even though I'm not happy with what I'm doing today, I found something that will help. Underneath is the Eric Butterworth saying, which goes with it, I am open and receptive to the inflow and the outpouring of all there is in God. That's number 1. I'll just get that again. I am open and receptive to the inflow and outpouring of all there is in God. Now, the bottom one. Those books down there have been sitting there for quite some time. And yesterday afternoon, I think it was, I came in and I was just looking through them and thinking, will I take one of these books or not? And I thought, no, I've been through these many times. But lo and behold, there was a book called The Be Happy Attitudes. And it was by Schuller, the gentleman from the Crystal Cathedral. And I thought, my goodness. And I have heard that he has been influenced by New Thought just quietly, him and a few others. And so his saying for that first beatitude is, I'm really hurting, but I'm going to bounce. Oops, no, that's the second one. I am actually hurting. Where are we? Here we go. I need help. I can't do it alone. Now, isn't this community like that? We have the most wonderful committee, and what's been going on, some people don't know, but we've all been helping in there, and while I was away, it was just fantastic to know that everything was running smoothly. Some of you here know that. And we can't do anything alone. We found that out with the pandemic, when we still had to go shopping and people had to serve us, and we had to serve others and be there for other people. So that's the Schuller ones. There's 3. We're doing the Beatitudes in Jesus' teachings at the moment, and I'm finding them quite revealing. Number 2. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Now, the act of mourning in our life is quite often a necessity, because without it, we cannot progress on the spiritual path. If everything's smooth all the time, life gets too comfortable. I know what it's like in the country. I just didn't want to come back down to Melbourne. The thought of driving into Melbourne traffic, my brain had been rewired. So I've had to rewire it again. And driving through Melbourne traffic is a nightmare at the moment because I'm going to come through the western suburbs and some of the roads are closed. And I remember it must have been about 6 months ago this happened, and I didn't know where I was. I didn't have the GPS or anything. And we were told to go here, there and everywhere. I finished up, would you believe, on the way to Geelong.
Easy done.
Yes.
No, seriously, easy done.
Yes. And so I said, God, every time I get into my car, I say, dear God, please let me drive wisely, safely and alertly. Bless all my fellow travellers, bless all my fellow people around me that are driving, and let me arrive at my destinations in peace, tranquility and punctuality, and bless my car. I give thanks for its perfect mechanisms. It's going to take me there. This is you in action, God, helping me to spread you in action. Anyway, this day didn't seem to work. I said, well, so much for that. 2 hours going nowhere, I thought. Then, coming down to Melbourne on Friday, the same thing happened. But I knew the way. And I had to go through that pain to get my act together and think, if this happens again, get your map together and get it right. So I've got a little trip. I know the western suburbs reasonably well, I thought, until then. So I've now got my way there and back. A few little, what they call rat runs, but I think now everyone will be using those. So we'll see how long it takes me to get home, but I've put it out there. Thank you, God, for that lesson for 6 months ago. So this is all about mourning, and when we mourn the passing of something, it's quite real. Then we have to remember that we are all passing through this stage of life. What we were even 20 years ago, we are not now. And sometimes we don't, in our mind, think we are who we are now. Like, sometimes we think we're 20 years younger. Until we start doing what we used to do 20 years younger, and we can't do it. So with the morning, I'm grateful for the challenges that lead me beyond my extremity to God's opportunity. And Shula's saying, I'm really hurting, but I'm going to bounce back. Easier said than done sometimes. Now, number 3, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Now, our definition of meek is having a patient, gentle disposition. In the Beatitudes, this means not towards man, but meek towards our Creator. We are that Creator in expression, but we didn't invent the power we're using. That gets to me sometimes. We are just expressions of that one presence and one power, but we didn't invent it. When Jesus said, not my will be done, he gave the expression to the law of meekness before God, Spirit. Whatever you want to call God, whatever you're going to call it somewhere, you're going to offend someone. And I can understand how in the early Jewish tradition they didn't name God. They didn't give God a name. I can see why. Now, Shula, I'm going to remain cool, calm, and corrected. So blessed are the meek. Okay? We're getting there. Number 4. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. We reach a stage in our spiritual growth where we not only know, but we really believe the law and strive towards doing so outwardly and inwardly. In our Jesus teachings, we've been delving into some of the Aramaic sayings. In our library, we have the Aramaic Truths there by Rocco Errico, and in the Minister's Library, they're there as well. And I have a big book of Aramaic, which I got from there. I got in first. But it was there for a couple of weeks before anyone took it, before wanted it. So I've now got that, and some of the words in it are just so explanatory. So These words, and it's worth studying some of the Aramaic books. So Aramaic, I've just got to find it here, is the same word. Righteousness in ancient Aramaic means truth. In Aramaic, this same word served both for truth and righteousness. Some are satisfied at their level of consciousness and have lost their hunger and thirst. While hunger and thirst of the physical body are limited, those of the thinking body for knowledge and truth are boundless. We never stop. Without this hunger and thirst, we can never enter the kingdom of God. And the Butterworth saying, I seek with all my mind and heart, and I shall find. And Schuller, I really want to do the right thing. Not easy to do the right thing. Number 5, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Here is an example of the law of cause and effect. If not immediately, but definitely in the long run, the merciful shall obtain mercy. That's not an easy one to understand because, if someone does something to it, they say it's all right, it'll catch up with them. But we quite often don't see it catching up with them. It might take months, might take years before that law works, that what we put out comes back for us. And it does work, whether it's this lifetime or another lifetime, which is another story, but it does work. So, I keep my thoughts centered upon only those things I want to see manifest in my life. I am going to treat others the way I want others to treat me. Number 6, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Now, can we see God? Moses wanted to see God. He said, God, can I see you? And God said, no. So what's that supposed to mean? Anyway, the pure in heart, they shall see God. The heart is often referred to as the feeling body. And I remember I had a craze on Sisliki, Dr. Sisliki. He was in a scene, modernist scene, and he had all different definitions for these. And I don't have the book now, but I've got my notes from them. The Zarathustrians had a simple code of ethics. Good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. In emphasizing the heart, Jesus goes to the root of all things beyond the words. As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. As we feel in our heart is what we are. Ernest Holmes is game enough to say, can we see God? And states, who thinks purity sees it and is beholding God. I see the world not as it is, but as I am. And I am in spiritual unity with God. And Schuller, I've got to let the faith flow free through me. Big one for now, number 7. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Remember, gender doesn't count anymore. Sons and daughters of God, humans of God. We're past that old language, but the sentiment is the same. Peace in Aramaic expresses the same idea as the Greek word harmony. When we think, feel and act according to law, our harmony is with God, and we are co-creators with God when we are at peace with all his creation. Now, that's not easy because Jesus says somewhere, I come not to send peace, but to send a sword. For goodness sakes, what's that supposed to mean? A sword. Well, as we expand in consciousness, those that can see more have to be very kind and gentle with those that aren't quite there yet. I won't say level, but at that rate of expansion. And not only as we expand in consciousness, this is what I found scary. Most of us here are intuitive, I'd say all of us are. The more we expand, the more we see the beauty of everything. But we also see the greatest misuse of that good. So the idea is to stand in the middle and keep that high watch, keep those thoughts going and live according to these Beatitudes. Fascinating stuff. Gee, we're amazing, aren't we? The things we have to do, I don't know how we're going to cope. But we will. We have to. That's all we're here to do. Because this life, this journey of its ups and downs is fantastic. But if we can keep our equilibrium, blessed are the peacemakers. And here we go, the Butterworth saying, I am a child of God and I act like one. I am a radiating centre of peace and love. And Schuller, telling his congregation there in the Crystal Cathedral, I'm going to be a bridge builder. Now the last one is a sort of combination, 8 and 9, but they're together here. Blessed are they that have been persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you when men shall reproach you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets that they went before you. Now this doesn't mean that we can get to heaven by becoming a martyr for some dogma. Divine Science Minister, the late Emmett Fox, suggests that all this persecution is of our lower self, tempting us to give way to fear, anger and old ways of thinking. And this creates resistance in us as we have to deny the lower self and live from our resurrected consciousness. Ooh. But we have wisdom. As we expand, we can see what's coming in some areas. When I was younger, being a gentle sort of musician type, working in pubs and weird sort of places, I decided to take karate lessons. And I did a few lessons. I thought, my God, I'm going to kill someone if I do this. This was ridiculous. And I said to the teacher, the sensei, I said, you know, what's going on? He said, look, one thing you'll learn from it, he says, you'll sense where there's trouble and you can move away from it. You can sense the vibrations. Can't say I'm perfect at it, but sometimes we know to sidestep, not take that any further or go this way. I eventually finished up doing Aikido, which is much more gentle. The monks learned that in Tibet. And when they were going through those hills, and the robbers and all those sort of people were there, the thing is when someone puts their arm out, you pull it and throw them over your head, supposedly.
Demonstration.
Yes. Okay, Wendy. And then, what's the other one? If they throw one, that's right. When they come, you get their arm and you throw them over your head. So easy. And there's just little people that are doing it. You know, the Kung Fu TV series. I used to love that. I gave it away to a kid who was about 18, who was just starting karate. I thought this would be a good influence on him. Get this Aikido thing happening. But anyway, we don't need to be persecuted outside. There are things we can do to avoid it, but we will. There's always someone that's going to press our button, but it's how we react to it. So in my Butterworth, in my quest for truth, I press on past my humanity to a deepening awareness and an increasing releasement of my potential and divinity. Chula, I can choose to be happy anyway. Wow. So to sum up, there we have it. Ancient wisdom, new thought, whatever we want to call it, eternal wisdom probably covers it because it's not going to change. And as we've seen, it keeps being reinterpreted, our use of this law. We understand the Beatitudes, but even that is being refined now. And isn't it interesting because Deepak Chopra will be coming to Melbourne in August, and he's at the Melbourne Exhibition Centre. Our little gathering is here. We've been studying this stuff for years. It's going to be interesting to see who goes along in the middle of winter to fill that hall that want that wisdom from him. Anyway, we're here for when they want to do more. Eckhart Tolle's coming out too. So people are ready for it, and when Jesus said, spread my teaching throughout the whole universe, we can now because of the technology. It's all about the power of our mind. The belief and understanding we are all individual expressions of it. There is nothing new under the sun, and the wisdom will reveal itself when we are ready. We can't push it. We can just let our souls be meek and learn while we make our mistakes and learn from the mistakes. Because it's already encoded in us. It's in our DNA. With the ups and downs, the blessings and challenges, it's a guide to help as we navigate this dual world of hot and cold. Here we are, it's the middle of winter, we're freezing. In the summer, we're too hot. And on it goes. This world of opposites, what a school, a mystery school. However, as Unity writer Catherine Ponder, who in her wonderful, easy way of reading, wrote, knowledge of the law is not enough. Practicing it is what brings results. And this is also the fifth Unity principle. Thank you. May the blessings be.